Howdy, folks. It's John Sheets. This recording's coming out a little bit late if you are there for this semester that I'm doing the recordings. If not, then you can ignore this part, like you're going to be getting the messages all in direction. This recording and our next recording going to be about a week late because I had strep throat last week. I did make Dr. Nern's lectures available as well as all the study resources, so you shouldn't have missed out on too much, especially since the lectures are in part designed to go and be supportive to the bookwork. So as long as you read through the books and you didn't run into any concepts that tripped you up, you should still be on pace. With that said, I would like to generate lectures for those chapters, so I'm going to get started on that. Let me go and share screen. We're going to share this screen. I'll drag here. Put you up there. And then set this one to be full screen. There we are. Alrighty. So we're going to be talking about the reproductive system today. This is going to be divided, and this is going to be divided between chapter 17 as well as chapter 18. So, reproductive system outline. We're going to be talking about the gonads, the male and female reproductive roles, form and function of the male reproductive system, form and function of the female reproductive system, disorders of the female reproductive system, stages of the human sexual response, and birth control. So gonads have two important functions. That is the production of gametes, and the production of the sex hormones. So gametes are going to go and be the basic sex cells. This is going to be eggs and sperm, and it's many, many forms between many, many different species. When an egg and a sperm are only going to go and have 50% of the DNA from their parent. So they have half of the total DNA loading that they need to make a living organism. So an egg and a sperm will fuse together in order to go and get back up to the maximal amount of DNA, the necessary amount of DNA to survive. When these two types of cells fuse to each other, this is going to go and produce something known as a gamete. Sex hormones are going to be things like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, things that are going to be related to the secondary sex characteristics, as well as some aspects of muscular function. Interesting fact, if you are a male, you produce a small amount of estrogen and you need that estrogen to live. And if you are a female, you produce a small amount of testosterone and you need that testosterone to live. Now, the two main gonads that are going to be producing the reproductive material, the site of synthesis for sperm and eggs, as well as, some of the sex-specific hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, that is going to be in the testes as well as the ovaries. The testes are the primary organ of male reproduction. The ovaries are the primary organ of female reproduction. So males and females are going to be making an equal genetic contribution, 50 from dad, 50 from mom, and they're going to go and each donate one of their copies of their chromosomes to the baby. So your DNA is going to go and be arranged into units called chromosomes. Each of these chromosomes you're going to have two sets. Let's say you have 10 chromosomes, the species has 10 chromosomes. There's going to be chromosome 1, chromosome 2, chromosome 3, etc. Chromosome 1 and chromosome 2 are going to go and be completely different. They're going to go and be coding for different set of genes. However, you have two copies of each individual gene. So you're going to have one copy of chromosome 1 from dad, one copy of chromosome 1 from mom, one copy of chromosome 2 from dad, one copy of chromosome 2 from mom. And all this is going to go and work to go and make sure that you're getting 50% of your DNA from your mother and 50% from your father. And the way that expresses itself is going to go and be following that genetic pattern we discussed earlier in the semester when we went over Mendel's Punnett squares and such. Now, male reproductive strategies are to produce a large amount of sperm, invest very few calories in reproduction, and then deliver them to the female reproductive system. Female reproductive strategies are significantly more expensive because one, the egg is larger, and so they are only produced once a month. And in general, female strategies are going to go and be centered around nourishing and protecting the offspring because they're the one that's going to be around when the offspring is born. This strategy is variable between taxa, however. One of the good indicators is based off of body size. In general, in species where the female is providing primary parental care, they're going to go and be slightly larger than the males, like in birds. However, in mammals, males tend to be larger because we have more intrasex, sec, God damn it, intrasexular interspecies. God damn it. Alrighty, we'll just go with this. Males of our species, mammal males compete for mates. Their reproductive strategy focuses on hoarding as many females as they can get, reproducing as many times as possible. And the less calories invested in that, the better. Now, social species. Now, this is our ancestral trait. This is the trait the mammals had as a core trait. Since that point, many species, including us, have evolved to go and have different care strategies and as such, and different reproductive strategies, and as such, you kind of see a lot more variation in body shapes and the proportional size between males and females among mammals. Alrighty, so back to repro. So each gamete contains 1/2 of the total number of chromosomes, haploid. So there's going to be 23 chromosomes. Fertilization, eggs and sperm cells are going to fuse, and that's going to form a zygote. So so we start with our gametes, they fuse together, develop into a zygote. We have 46 total chromosomes. These are 23 sets of pairs. 23 you get from your mother, 23 you get from your father, numbered chromosome 1 through 23. It's important to note that the copy of the chromosome that you get from your mother and the copy of the chromosome you get from your father, they are coding for the same genes. They are the same genes, but they are coding for different alleles. So different genotypic expressions of those genes. So that's why they are always presented in pairs. Now, male reproductive strategy, leave the A. Oh, I hit the wrong arrow. That was the problem. All right. So, form and function of the male reproductive system. We start with the testes. That's the site of sperm production, and also an incubation chamber to keep the sperm at a healthy temperature, as well as the site of the production of testosterone. And then we also have accessory glands. We have the prostate gland, the seminal vesicles, and the bulbourethral gland. And then, of course, you have the penis. So let's have a look at this diagram here. So the seminal vesicles, this is going to go, the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland are all going to be emitting secondary chemicals that are going to help maintain the longevity of the sperm. So the seminal vesicles and the prostate glands and the bulbourethral glands are all going to secrete thick fluid that will go and help neutralize the acidity inside of the urethra from urine. So since the urethra is normally moving urine has a high amount of uric acid. It's too acidic for sperm to survive. So emissions from the prostate gland and the seminal vesicles help to neutralize, prostate gland and bulbourethral gland help to neutralize that acidity. The seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland are all going to work together to produce nourishing liquid that is going to go and aid in sustaining the sperm as well. So there's going to be like fluids and free amino acids and sugars and a bunch of other things that are just necessary to keep these things alive, and guide the sperm along the reproductive track to the female genetic material. Now, the penis itself has a couple different types of tissues in here. You're going to go and most of these are just going to be high saturations of nerve tissue and vascular tissue with the objective of being saturated with blood in order to go and provide temporary stiffness or an erection. Now, testes held outside the abdominal cavity and the scrotum allows for temperature regulation. The scrotum is going to contract or expand depending on the ambient temperature to go and bring the testicles further away from or closer to the body. This is the main way that the testes are going to be keeping the sperm from getting baked. Sperm needs to go and be a couple degrees colder than the temperature of the human body, which is why we have this structure. Now, the sperm are going to develop in the seminiferous tubules inside of the testicle from puberty onwards. So those are these those seminiferous tubules are going to be concentrated here in the epididymis over that's going to go and be cupping the back of the testicles. So these are just really just massive amounts of super squiggly tubes that are going to go and then run back and loop through and just act as an incubator, and it's going to provide chemical nourishment, and it's going to be the site where sperm reaches maturity. Now, in order to go and support the sperm, in order to go and support the development of secondary sexual characteristics, we're going to have tissues that are going to be producing sex hormones. So in the testes, these are known as Leydig cells, and they're going to be producing specifically testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. Again, it is important to note, in a biological male, testosterone is really high. All the other hormones are kind of low. Biological female, estrogen is really high. All the other hormones are kind of low. In a pregnant woman, progesterone, super high. All the other hormones really pretty low. Estrogen is still at a normal level for a woman. So here we can go and see those structures kind of blown up a bit. This is what I meant by saying it was a bunch of squiggly tubes. So the inside of the testicle is going to go and be the point where this development's going to start, and then the sperm are going to slowly migrate through the epididymis towards the vas deferens as they become more and more mature. So here you can see the walls of the seminiferous tubules, which are going to go and be the little pink squigglies. And there you have the tails of the sperm, which are just kind of freely floating. Now, one of the most common disorders of the male reproductive system is testicular cancer. It starts hitting men from puberty onwards, so like 12 onwards. It is the most common form of cancer that's going to go and start afflicting men from the ages of 15 to 35 years of age. After that, prostate cancer is going to go and start occurring at higher rates. And this is not because you no longer have as high of a chance to get testicular cancer. It's because your chance of getting prostate cancer has gone up. Testicular cancer usually is not painful, which is why self-examination is important. Like when you take your shower or whatever, just make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. It is something that has a pretty high cure rate when caught in the early stages, and this is because, one, due to that temperature separation, the testicles are going to be more separated from the body, and two, if you catch it early, you can remove the testicle and even adjacent systems without killing the person. You have a lot more options for treatment than, say, a heart or a brain, where you need to keep the entire structure as intact as possible. For a testicle, you get testicular cancer, they tend to just remove that one testicle and you're still fertile. Now, duct system. So the epididymis is going to be receiving sperm from the seminiferous tubules. The epididymis is going to go and be packed full of highly coiled seminiferous tubules. And this is going to be the site of sperm maturation and then storage. So the vas deferens is going to conduct sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. The vas deferens is going to go and be, the vas deferens was that tube earlier that like hooked back in, ran by the bladder, and then passes through the prostate, and then empties into the urethra from there. So the urethra, whoops, sorry folks. Alrighty, so the urethra is going to conduct urine from the urinary bladder and conduct sperm from the vas deferens. Now, semen is going to be composed of the sperm itself and the secretions of the accessory glands, which are in turn going to be reducing acidity and also supporting the sperm nutritionally. This is going to be released through the urethra during orgasm. That is what male orgasm is. It's ejaculation, this process. Now, accessory glands. The prostate gland is going to surround the upper portion of the urethra, and it's going to produce alkaline secretions, which means they're going to be basic pH. These secretions are going to do two things. Firstly, there's a little bit of sugar and there's some hormones in there. That's going to go and energize the sperm and get it to start swimming. And it's also going to reduce the natural acidity of the female reproductive tract, along with the acidity of your urethra, which is going to go and in turn allow the sperm to do what it needs to do without getting killed by the acid. Another disorder of the prostate gland is age-related enlargement. This tends to start at middle age. It is not a sign of cancer. And it happens to all men. But basically, for some reason, as men age, the prostate gland starts to enlarge. And if it enlarges in the wrong way, it is going to restrict the flow of your urine. This can lead to longer bathroom visits. It can lead to pain when urinating. It can lead to a lot of different issues. There are surgeries to go and deal with it that usually try to reduce the size of the prostate gland. But in general, we don't want to touch the prostate gland unless we're removing it, which we only really will do if there's cancer on the prostate. So prostate cancer is usually detected through rectal exam and then verified by blood tests. What they're specifically measuring is the prostate-specific antigen, also known as the PSA. So that's going to go and be tissue that's going to stimulate an immune response that's going to go and be from damaged tissue in the prostate. So, this is one of those things that you have to consider as you get older. It's important to get your annual tests. Like, these are kind of a universal problem. Seminal vesicles. So those are going to be the paired glands that are going to be at the top of the vas deferens that are going to go and be they're going to be releasing fructose, so more nourishment. They're going to be releasing amino acids, which both thickens the semen to allow it to stay in the woman for longer, and also is going to go and provide amino acids as nourishment to the sperm. And it's going to go and assist the movement of the sperms through the use of different hormones known as prostaglandins. So you can think of this kind of like a soup kitchen. This is going to be providing the nutrients that the sperm is going to need to live. Prostate gland, the main issue is like the security detail. They're there to go and reduce the acidity. This is the kitchen. Seminal vesicles are going to feed the sperm. Now, the bulbourethral glands, these are paired glands, and it's going to release a clear, slippery liquid before ejaculation. And this is also going to go and help neutralize acidity as well. This one, however, it is mainly focused on cleaning the male's own urethra instead of cleaning the female's vaginal tract. That is what the prostate glands emissions are more for. Now, the penis, this is the delivery mechanism for delivering sperm to the female reproductive tract. It's going to go and be made of spongy erectile tissue divided into 3 different columns. During an erection, blood is going to saturate those columns, stiffening the tissue and causing, we have a class of penis known as a vasodilating penis, which means that we use blood pressure in order to go and have an erection, and it changes size when we do that. The other type is I believe it's elastofibril, and that has an actual bone that's going to go and be supporting the penis, so it's always going to be in the same shape, and it's just going to be stored internally. Most other mammals have a penis like that. So there you go, a little more info. Now, the glans penis, that is the head or the tip of the penis, and it's going to be covered in highly sensitive nerve endings. Because of this is typically protected by a foreskin. However, in Islam, Judaism, some sects of Christianity, a lot of sub-Saharan African cultural practices, as well as a lot of Southeast Asian cultural practices and American cultural practices. Circumcision is very common in this world. Circumcision is the surgical removal of the foreskin, which is a skin sheath that covers the head of the penis. Removal of this reduces the incident level of STDs, but also greatly reduces penile sensitivity, which might be good depending on who you are and what kind of issues you're dealing with. But in general, this is one of those things that is no longer medically advised to be done at birth, which is something that we previously advised parents to do for the last several generations. Probably last 100 years or so. It actually started because of a man named Kellogg, the inventor of the cereal. He had some very specific ideas around that. And it's something that's kind of interesting to look into. Now, erectile dysfunction, also known as ED, the old name for this is impotence, although now that impotence tends to refer to somebody who is sterile and is often used as a insult. So, be careful with that term. Now, inability to achieve or maintain an erection. So, erectile dysfunction is where you can no longer get it up, or you cannot keep it up long enough to do what you're trying to do. So, like any other sort of dysfunction inside of a biological system, we only identify it as a dysfunction when it becomes a problem. So, the actual severity of the disorder might be variable depending on the person and the demands of their lifestyle. Now, causes can come from anything. Psychological problems are the most common. In general, it's easier to blame erectile dysfunction over the fact that you just aren't in a good place to have sex, or you might not mentally, or you might have something else going on, or you're worried about something, like anything that's going to be distracting from the issue at hand, per se. Now, occasionally, however, it is an indicator of damage to the circulation or damage to the nervous system. There's a lot of different things that can go and be there's a lot of different things that can go and cause this sort of issue. Another thing that might go and be causing this issue is that your metabolism related to nitric oxide. So let's have a look here. So nitric oxide is a naturally occurring hormone in your body or chemical in your body that is used to trigger an erection. It also is a vasodilator, which promotes can help disrupt a heart attack. The drug Viagra, was originally a nitric oxide treatment designed to go and help treat somebody with consistent heart issues. The secondary effect very quickly was marketed as the primary effect because we're in America. This is how we sell things. Now, oh, and it's important to note, nitric oxide is naturally occurring, is the natural mechanism for this to occur. Viagra just causes you to be more sensitive to nitric oxide. So the natural materials you have, your body pays more attention to them. Here's a summation table that has all the structures and all the functions of the organs that we just discussed. Now, sperm development, spermatogenesis. This is going to occur within the seminiferous tubules, and it's going to reduce the chromosome number to one member of each pair. So basically, whenever your body is synthesizing tissue, it's going to start with the same amount of DNA as you. It's going to go and have 23 chromosomes, 2 copies of each, one from mom, one from dad. So you're going to have 46 total. Now, when you are developing your sperm, 50% of those chromosomes need to be absorbed. It's going to be arbitrary, whether it's from mom or dad, which one is going to get absorbed, but you are still going to have one copy of each of the 23 types of chromosome. This is also the point where the shape of the sperm is going to go and start specializing in order to go and better deliver this genetic material. Now, when we are first creating sperm, we're going to go and start with spermatogonia. These are undifferentiated diploid cells. They still have the same amount of DNA as the original parent. This is just standard mitosis, cellular replication. This is the same mechanism by which I'd heal a cut on my hand. Now, from there, we also have primary spermatocytes. Those are going to be spermatogonia that have undergone a few different stages of division. They've replicated themselves a few times. So these are going to be diploid cells. They still have that full amount of DNA, but they have, and then at this point, they're going to go and undergo two divisions of meiosis. And meiosis is sex cell division. So this is going to go and be how we're going to go and be getting down to one copy of the chromosome. Now we look here at our secondary spermatocyte. This is going to go and be the product of meiosis 1. It's going to be a haploid cell, and it's going to have many copies of it, and it's going to have some copies. And this is going to occur after meiosis 1. After meiosis 2, the spermatids, which is what we're going to go and call, are going to be formed. Spermatids are going to be haploid, and they're going to be formed after meiosis 2. So, real quick, let me go and pull up a chart that's going to go over mitosis and meiosis in just a little bit more detail, because I think it's worth discussing. Yes. Mitosis and meiosis. Side-by-side diagram. Here we are. Oop, that one's down. Right. Oh, well, that's fine. We'll just go and look at this image. It'll just be kind of small. So if you look here, in mitosis, we start normal amount of DNA of the parent, then we replicate it, doubling it up. We have a double copy of the DNA. Then the cell divides, and now you have two daughter cells that each have the full amount of parental DNA. We doubled once, we divided once, one each. That is mitosis. That is the way like a cut heals. Sexual reproduction, we end up needing meiosis. So in meiosis, our DNA gets doubled, it divides, and so now you have two different cells that have the same amount of DNA as the parent, and then we divide again. It's mitosis so nice, we do it twice. So then we divide again. Now we are left with 4 daughter cells that each have 50% of the DNA of an adult cell. That's what that part of the presentation was trying to convey. Alrighty. All right, so the spermatids are going to be that final daughter cell right there. Now, spermatozoa, these are going to go and be the cell that's going to go and be really developing the tail, the shape of the head, the motor mechanisms. The spermatozoa are going to be the first cell that's actually going to look like a sperm. It's going to have a head, a midpiece, and a tail. And here you can just see how that process works. We start with our spermatogonium, 2 copies of each chromosome. That's going to divide into a primary spermatocyte, 1 copy of each. That's going to replicate and then divide into a primary spermatocyte. That's then going to divide into a secondary spermatocyte, which has 1 copy of each chromosome. And then we're going to go and divide into a spermatid. And then finally, that's going to start and then as it turns into a spermatid, it's going to start developing those specialized structures. And then finally, when it's released and it's free, it's going to be called a spermatozoon, which I like the name, so that's pretty cool. Now, this is the anatomy of a sperm. It's going to have a whip-like tail that's going to propel it through liquids. This is known as a flagellum. It's going to have a midpiece containing the mitochondria that will provide the fuel to the tail. It's going to have a head, which is going to contain the father's chromosomes, which is going to go and be 1 copy of each chromosome. The mother's going to have the other copy. And then it's going to have a protective sheath called the acrosome. This is going to go and contain enzymes that can go and dissolve through the wall of the egg so the genetic material can actually reach the genetic material of the female. Now, hormones, testosterone. So, testosterone secreted by the interstitial cells, the Leydig cells of the testes. Super important for sperm development, production, and it's very important for the development of male secondary sex characteristics, things like large height, facial hair, thicker musculature, thicker bone structure, the external appearance of the genitalia, uh, things like that. And then finally, you're going to go and have production is going to be regulated by a negative feedback loop. So when testosterone gets too high, that's going to go and cause the system to stop producing testosterone. It's going to go and terminate its own production. This is how we keep consistent sex hormone levels in our body. Now, here we have the hypothalamus, which is going to be releasing GnRH, also known as gonadotrophin releasing hormone. So gonadotrophin releasing hormone is going to be primarily focusing on the action of the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is producing a hormone known as luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is going to, in men, induce the production of testosterone, and in women, trigger the start of the period. That is what tells the egg that it has not been fertilized and it needs to go and be expelled. Now, rising testosterone levels inhibit GnRH release at the hypothalamus, inhibit LH production at the anterior pituitary, and then testosterone secretion is going to be decreasing. So rising testosterone is going to go and inhibit the production of GnRH, which is in turn going to inhibit the production of luteinizing hormone, which is in turn what tells us to produce testosterone in the first place. This is a negative feedback loop. Now, sperm production controlled by a negative feedback loop. This is going to go and be mainly controlled by follicle stimulating hormone, which is going to be produced by the anterior pituitary as well. Let me just double check something. All right. So when the follicle stimulating hormone is being released, the spermatogonia, which are going to go and start getting more and more sensitive to testosterone, and that in turn is going to stimulate sperm production. So I'm trying to remember where that structure is, and it's driving me crazy. So I'm just going back real quick. Okay, to this one. Spermatogonia, it's not there. Okay. Well, that's okay. So high sperm numbers are going to prompt the seminiferous tubules to produce inhibin. Inhibin is going to inhibit the production of follicle stimulating hormone, which is in turn going to reduce sperm production. There we are. We have our friend, the spermatogonia, or I think that's supposed to be spermatogonia, actually. Spermatogonia. Huh. Okay. Interesting. Whenever I see a term in these things, I always make sure to research it. I just tend to do that before the recording. Sorry about that. Spermatogonia. Oh. Huh. Okay. Weird. So okay, so the spermatogonia is going to go and be the base stem cells that are going to divide to actually create. So it's going to go and be, yeah, here we are, spermatogonia. Okay, that was just an extra O. I don't know why that O really threw me off. Full disclosure, I have pretty bad dyslexia. So anytime I run across something with weird formatting, like, a presentation like this, uh, it's gonna really mess with my head. All right, so inhibin is going to inhibit the production of SSH, and sperm production is going to die. So here we have the male feedback loop. We have the hypothalamus, which is going to go and be increasing the production of gonadotrophin secretion. Okay, sorry. So let's start here. Let's say plasma testosterone has gone up. That because we have elevated testicular secretion. So that's going to go and trigger a negative feedback loop. It's going to go and tell the hypothalamus to stop GnRH production. Without GnRH production, that's in turn going to stop telling the anterior pituitary to be producing FSH, and luteinizing hormone. So this is going to in turn tell the Leydig cells to stop producing testosterone. And also is going to go and be telling the FSH hormones to stop triggering spermatogonia into dividing into sperms. So both of these are going to be negative feedback loops. Inhibin is going to focus specifically on FSH. It does not have any bearing on testosterone levels. Testosterone, however, is going to have bearing on both FSH and luteinizing hormone. Just to give you guys a bit more to work with here, here's a little video that's going to go and summarize some of that content along with some visuals.
The structures of the male reproductive system produce and store sperm, synthesize accessory fluids, and transport and deliver semen. Here we see a cross-section or side view of the male lower torso. The urinary bladder is a muscular sac that stores urine. It shares its exit tube, the urethra, with the male reproductive system. The urethra carries both urine from the bladder and sperm in the semen through the penis to the outside of the body. The erectile tissue of the penis is a spongy tissue surrounding the urethra that inflates with blood during sexual arousal and causes an erection. This mechanism provides for the delivery of semen into the female reproductive tract during ejaculation. Within the scrotal sac, or scrotum, are two paired testes, the site of spermatogenesis, and the source of male-specific hormones called androgens, the most important of which is testosterone. The newly formed sperm leave a testis via the epididymis, a coiled tube where the sperm continue to mature and can be stored until ejaculation. The sperm leave the epididymis via the vas deferens, which travels up and behind the urinary bladder and back down to the ejaculatory duct. Several accessory glands contribute accessory fluid to sperm as it proceeds. These are the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral glands. Now consider each structure of the male reproductive tract in front view. Note that the vasa deferentia pass behind the urinary bladder. From this view, you can see that many of the structures, including the testes, epididymides, vasa deferentia, seminal vesicles, and bulbourethral glands are paired. The cells that undergo spermatogenesis line the walls of the seminiferous tubules located in the testes. The parent cells are diploid and undergo mitosis to replenish themselves and to produce cells called primary spermatocytes. Meiosis I in the primary spermatocytes produces secondary spermatocytes. Meiosis II in the secondary spermatocytes produces haploid spermatids. The spermatids then undergo restructuring. Among other changes, the spermatids lose some of their cytoplasm and develop a tail. Mature sperm, also known as spermatozoa, are the result. During ejaculation, sperm are released into the female reproductive tract. If the sperm encounter an egg, they can come together in the process called fertilization. First, the sperm must move through the follicle cells that surround the egg. A covering called the zona pellucida provides the egg protection and acts as a species-specific barrier to fertilization. Sperm have receptors that recognize and bind to the zona pellucida from their own species. After binding, a sperm releases enzymes from a structure called the acrosome. Acrosomal enzymes break down the zona pellucida and allow the single sperm to contact the egg's plasma membrane and fuse with it. Reactions in the egg prevent additional sperm from entering. The DNA of the sperm unites with the DNA of the egg, forming a zygote. The zygote then begins the process of development and completes its journey with implantation into the uterine wall.
Alrighty, there. So that is the full process of fertilization. Again, folks, sorry I got a little bit confused there. Yeah. So here is a summary chart of the different hormones we discussed, as well as what structure they affect and how they affect that structure. It's a good study tool. And here, we're going to be moving on to the form and function of the female reproductive system. Structures of the female reproductive system are going to include the ovaries, the oviducts, the uterus, the vagina, the external genitalia, and the breasts. Now, the uterus is a pear-shaped organ that's going to house and develop the baby. When not full, like when it doesn't have a baby in it, it's about the size of a fist. The oviduct is going to go and be collecting the eggs from the ovary. Well, this is just a total. Let's go and do it. There's a lot to cover, so let's go and do it stage by stage. So, ovaries produce eggs through oogenesis. This is going to produce estrogen and progesterone. Although it is important to note, while a sperm is going to produce 4 daughter cells, this is only going to produce 1 viable daughter cell at the end. All right. So the ovaries produce the eggs. It's also going to produce estrogen and progesterone. This is kind of the standard. This structure is specialized into the testicle in a male. Then you have the oviduct or the fallopian or uterine tubes. This is going to transport the immature eggs from the ovary to the uterus, which is going to be the primary site of fertilization. The uterus itself is a hollow muscular organ and is going to receive and nourish the developing embryo. This is the incubator portion of the reproductive tract. The wall of the uterus is going to have 2 layers. First, there's going to be a layer called the endometrium. This is going to be where the egg is actually going to implant. And then outside of that is a thick layer of smooth muscle, the same thing that lines most of our other organs. Now, if no implantation occurs, then the lining is going to be shed. And that's going to go and be known as a menstrual flow. So the lining of the uterus is going to peel away from the wall, and it's going to go and be passed out through the vagina, and then a new lining is going to develop until it's ready for the next egg, at which point the cycle begins again. This takes about a month. Now, at the bottom of the uterus, there's going to go and be a narrow structure known as the cervix. And that is going to go and extend into the caudal vagina or the back of the vagina. Now, the vagina is going to go and be the organ that is actually used for intercourse, sexual intercourse. That's the intent is reproduction. So this is also going to, and it's going to go and have 3 primary functions. It's going to enable the rejection of the uterine wall during a menstrual flow. It's going to be the organ that receives genetic information from the penis during intercourse, and it's going to serve as the birth canal or site of delivery when the baby's born, if a baby's born. Now, on the outside of the female reproductive system, the external genitals of the female are known as the vulva, and they're going to be composed of 3 main components: the labia majora, the labia minora, and the clitoris. The clitoris is made of the same type of tissue that the penis is made out of. It's going to be filled with erectile tissue, and it's going to be hypersaturated with nerve endings. So if we go back here, you can go and see the structures that we're just discussing. Here's the uterus up here. Then you can see the endometrium lining that's going to be rejected during the period. Here's that thick layer of smooth muscle that's going to form part of the uterine wall. The cervix right here, the long skinny neck that's opening into the caudal vagina. The vagina, this long flexible tube with some rugoi near the entrance. The oviduct, which is going to go and conduct eggs to the uterus. The ovary, which produces the eggs and sex hormones. And then, of course, you have the bladder right here. As for external structures, the clitoris is at the top. Then you have the opening to the urethra, which is going to be right above the actual opening to the vagina. This area is going to be typically covered when not aroused. The labia will be sealed, but it's variable by person to person. The internal one is going to be the labia minora. The external one is going to be the labia majora. Then over here, this is another diagram of this from a front view. So you can see these two long structures are going to be known as uterine horns right here. And, then we have our fallopian tubes. Then we have our ovaries. Then all the structures. Now, this little video is just going to go over this process a little bit more, just so you have a visual model to work with.
The structures of the female reproductive tract produce eggs, receive sperm, and incubate, nourish, and deliver offspring. Here we see a cross-section or side view of the female lower torso. Let's begin with the external genitalia or labia. The labia majora is a fold in the skin that, together with the labia minora, conceals the opening to the vagina and urethra. Just in front of the labia is the clitoris, a small organ made of centrally sensitive erectile tissue. Between the labia are the vaginal opening and the opening to the urethra. The urethra and urinary bladder are not part of the reproductive system in females and have totally separate ducts. The vaginal opening leads to the vagina, also called the birth canal. Sperm are deposited in the vagina during intercourse, and a fetus moves through the vagina during birth. Moving upward, we see the cervix. This narrow lower part of the uterus must dilate during the birth of a baby. The uterus itself is a muscular, hollow, fist-sized organ within which the embryo implants and the fetus develops. The ovum is fertilized in the fallopian tube or oviduct, which connects the uterus with the area just next to the ovary. The ovaries, one on each side of the uterus, produce eggs and estrogens, the female hormones. Now consider the key structures of the female reproductive tract in front view. Note that only the ovaries and oviducts are paired. The rest of the system is single and centrally located. Let's examine the ovary in greater detail. The egg cells, or oocytes, lie in the outer portion of the ovaries. Each oocyte sits within a sphere of follicle cells that eventually provide nutrients. Together, each oocyte and its accessory cells is called an ovarian follicle. On average, only one of these follicles matures in each repetition of the menstrual cycle, passing through the stages of primary, secondary, and tertiary follicles. The oocyte contained in the mature follicle is expelled at the end of the...
So this expulsion event, here, that's going to be associated with follicle stimulating hormone. That is how the hormone got its original name. It was first identified in female systems before it was identified in male systems.
The oviduct. With expulsion of the oocyte, the tertiary follicle is transformed into the corpus luteum, which for a time produces hormones that can aid in pregnancy.
So the corpus luteum is going to go and be producing progesterone, which is the pregnancy maintenance hormone. It's going to go and tell your body not to shed the uterine wall because it has an egg incubated there. This is pretty much the corpus luteum is going to go and only remain active during the first part of like a standard menstrual cycle. But if the baby is present, then it's going to be present throughout the entire course of the pregnancy.
The release of an egg cell from the ovary into the oviduct is called ovulation. Once in the oviduct, the oocyte may encounter sperm and become fertilized by one of them. The fertilized egg, now called a zygote, then begins the process of development and completes its journey with implantation into the uterine wall. The menstrual cycle is a monthly sequence of ovarian and uterine events controlled by hormones secreted by the pituitary gland and the reproductive organs. The average cycle length is 28 days. During each cycle, an ovary releases an oocyte and the uterus is prepared for embryo implantation. If fertilization does not occur, a new menstrual cycle begins. The menstrual cycle consists of two phases, the follicular phase and the luteal phase. By convention, the cycle begins with the onset of menstruation, the shedding of the endometrium, the mucous membrane that lines the uterus. At the beginning of menstruation, the pituitary gland releases high levels of follicle-stimulating hormone, abbreviated FSH, and low levels of luteinizing hormone, or LH. FSH stimulates a follicle in the ovary to grow. The developing follicle produces low levels of estrogens and progesterone. The low levels of estrogen suppress LH secretion by the pituitary gland through feedback inhibition. Therefore, LH levels remain low while estrogen levels are low. By day 7, menstruation is over and the uterine lining begins to rebuild itself. As the follicle grows in the ovary, its production of estrogen increases. As the level of estrogen increases, it begins to exert positive feedback on LH levels. That is, instead of suppressing LH secretion by the pituitary, estrogen now stimulates LH secretion. The increased level of estrogen triggers a large spike in LH and a smaller spike in FSH that together signal the end of the follicular phase and the onset of the luteal phase. The LH surge triggers ovulation, the rupturing of the follicle.
My bad, guys. I mixed up FSH and LH. Luteinizing hormone stimulates the rupture of the follicle, not FSH, like I said earlier.
Follicle. This event occurs on or around day 14. The secondary oocyte that emerges from the ruptured follicle is transported down the oviduct. In the ovary, the corpus luteum develops from the ruptured follicle. The levels of estrogen, FSH, and especially LH now drop appreciably, but in response to the previous surge in LH, the corpus luteum begins to secrete large amounts of progesterone and smaller quantities of estrogen. In combination, these hormones suppress the secretion of FSH and LH from the pituitary gland through feedback inhibition. With FSH levels so low, no additional follicles can mature during this part of the menstrual cycle. The rise in progesterone levels converts the thickened uterine lining to an actively secreting tissue with a well-developed blood supply, creating an environment that will support embryonic implantation and development if fertilization occurs. The corpus luteum remains active during the first part of pregnancy and keeps progesterone and estrogen levels high. When fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum degenerates. Progesterone and estrogen levels fall as a result, causing the thickened uterine lining to degenerate as well. With progesterone and estrogen levels low, feedback inhibition on LH and FSH is removed. The levels of LH and FSH begin to rise. A new follicle then starts to mature, and the uterine lining starts to slough off. A new menstrual cycle begins.
There you go. So that is following the hormone levels through the entirety of menstruation. Now, secondary sex characteristic number 1 is going to be the breast tissue. So the mammary glands are productive in the female and not in the male. So in the female, during the course of pregnancy, a series of hormones are going to go and be released. I think a couple of them is like prolactin. That's one of them. And that's going to go and trigger the breast tissue to enlarge, and it's going to go and trigger it to go and start lactating, producing milk. And this is a universal trait among mammals, one of the defining traits among mammals. So let's have a look at the structure. So if you go and look at breast tissue here, you can see that it's mainly a network of fatty tissue to go and insulate the rest of this tissue. And this is all that's present. In addition to this, you're going to go and have these glands known as milk glands that are lodged throughout the fatty tissue that are then going to slowly produce milk and deposit it into these milk ducts. Each of these ducts is going to open in a ring around the inside of the nipple, and it's going to go and be supported by this frame of connective tissue. As people age, this connective tissue gets less and less thorough, leading to sagging of the breasts. In addition, if somebody accumulates a lot of weight and increases their breast size through fat accumulation, this connective tissue also is going to be stressed, which might lead to breast sagging. So here's a review of the female reproductive structures and what they do, just to help with the studying again. Now, the ovarian cycle. This is going to be follicular development. It's going to lead to the release of an egg. It's going to form a corpus luteum. is going to last approximately 28 days. Before a woman is born, all of her primary oocytes have formed. The immature eggs have formed. Now, the primary follicle, when it forms, is going to go and contain the primary oocyte, which is going to have 2N, and it's going to go and include the surround, and it's going to go be surrounded by a network of flattened cells. Sorry, don't know why I was having trouble with that sentence. Now, ovarian cycle continued, egg development, puberty. The eggs remain in an immature state until puberty, and then at that point, each egg is going to develop it into a single primary follicle over the course of a month until menopause, which is what happens when an individual runs out of eggs at the end of their reproductive lifespan. So it usually occurs in women in their 50s. Now, follicular phase, follicular maturation. So the primary follicle is going to produce a secondary or Graafian follicle. Now, the primary oocyte is going to go and complete the first mitotic division to mitosis 2. And this is in turn going to perform the secondary oocyte in the first polar body. So a polar body is going to have the same genetic information as the secondary oocyte, but it's going to go and be, it's not going to have enough cytoplasm to go and sustain itself. And so it's going to go and be reabsorbed for nutrients. Now then the secondary oocyte is going to be released from the ovary. And if fertilization occurs, mitosis 2 is completed, and that's going to form an ovum, which is the mature egg, and a secondary polar body. The polar bodies are cells that just do not have enough cytoplasm to live. This is because we want the ovum to accumulate as much cytoplasm as possible to serve as nutrients for the developing offspring. Now, at the end of a cycle, you tend to go and enter the luteal phase. So the luteal phase is when the corpus luteum is going to be forming. So the corpus luteum is going to be formed from the structures of the Graafian follicle under the influence of luteinizing hormone, or LH. Right. CL. Give me a sec. Yeah, the corpus luteum, that's going to be like a tiny endocrine organ. It releases estrogen and progesterone, and it's going to break down unless pregnancy occurs. The corpus luteum is producing our pregnancy maintenance hormone, progesterone, but it does need to get feedback in order to go and stay as a structure. Otherwise, it's just going to heal over, and a new one's going to form next month. So here's that entire cycle. So here we start with the primary follicles that are going to contain the primary oocyte. The follicle cells are going to be secreting estrogen. After that, we're going to go and have the formation, development. Then the layers of follicular cells are going to thicken. Estrogen-containing fluids are going to accumulate, resulting in the formation of a hollow cavity on the inside. Now, here, the mature or Graafian follicle is going to go and start growing. Here you can see the first polar body is both the second polar body. You see how much tinier the first polar body is compared to the secondary oocyte. Yeah. Then at ovulation, the mature follicle ruptures, releasing the secondary oocyte. Then that structure, the follicular cells that remain behind in the ovary, is going to go and start to thicken and develop into the corpus luteum. That secretes estrogen as well as progesterone, the pregnancy maintenance hormone. If at this point we do not receive feedback from the womb saying that pregnancy is occurring, then the corpus luteum is going to go and start degenerating and be reabsorbed for nutrients. So at monthly intervals, the egg matures. The egg is going to be released from the ovary, and then we're going to have the corpus luteum forming. the uterus is going to be readied. It's going to receive and nurture the embryo, or if fertilization does not occur, the uterine lining is going to be discarded and a phenomenon known as menstrual flow. If fertilization occurs, human chorionic gonadotrophin is going to be produced by the embryo, HCG, and that's going to go and keep the corpus luteum from degrading. This is going to maintain the corpus luteum. Now, if fertilization occurs, all right, so hormones of the corpus luteum, yeah, and this is going to go and maintain the endometrium, which will go and prevent menstruation. So the corpus luteum is going to go and be kept in place, and it's going to prevent the period from occurring. Now, then we have the anterior pituitary gland. This is going to produce follicle-stimulating hormones, which is going to in turn stimulate follicular development. Then we have luteinizing hormone, which is going to trigger ovulation and also the formation of the corpus luteum. We have estrogen, which is going to go and control the development of the endometrium. We have the development of female reproductive structures, and it's going to stimulate ovulation as well. Progesterone, this is going to maintain the endometrium and therefore delay the onset of a period until after the birth of the offspring. And here are the hormonal cycles throughout the course of somebody's menstrual cycle. You can see the spike in luteinizing hormone inducing ovulation. And you can see what hormones are being produced where, based off of what dies off when. So follicle-stimulating hormone is not going to be present in the luteal phase, at least until the very end when we have the follicle starting to reform. Then we have our estrogen, our inhibin, and our progesterone, as well as the actual intromedial. This is kind of like a crosscut of the actual intromedial tissue and how dense it is at different stages during the cycle. So like here's the menses, you can see it's starting to degrade and break down. Something that's kind of interesting is the body temperature is going to go and be elevated for about a week after ovulation. So kind of cool. And this is just showing how that's all going to go and be breaking down with the that's going to be showing the different like hormone levels in different parts of the body during the course of the cycle. So like these are going to be conveying the same data, but it's also going to go and be showing what organs these hormones are going to be generated from. So FSH stimulates the development of follicles in the ovary. That's produced from our anterior pituitary. LH surge triggers ovulation, transforms the follicle into the corpus luteum. There you go. Now, this chart is going to go and show the different hormones involved and their sources, as well as what effects they will have on the tissue when they get there. And this chart is going to go and be documenting what's occurring at what stage in the menstrual cycle. Again, good study resources. Now, here's a little video that's going to go and run through it, hopefully without my stutter. So we'll see.
Upon ovulation, a mature ovum travels from the ovary through the oviduct toward the uterus. Progesterone hormones are secreted by the burst follicle, now called the corpus luteum. Progesterone prepares the lining of the uterus for egg implantation and fetal development. In response to progesterone, the lining of the uterus, called the endometrium, thickens and blood flow to the uterine lining is maintained. Sperm released into the vagina travel through the cervix and uterus to meet the mature egg in the oviduct, where fertilization takes place. The embryo attaches to the endometrium. Progesterone continues to be made by the corpus luteum for 6 to 7 weeks until the placenta is developed and can take over progesterone production to support the growth of the fetus. If fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum degenerates, halting the production of progesterone. The uterine lining becomes unable to support attachment of the mature egg. The egg and the uterine lining are expelled from the body during menstruation.
Alrighty, so yeah, that is the full reproductive cycle. Now, menopause, the cessation of ovulation and menstruation, usually occurs between the ages of 45 and 55 years of age. This is going to be very variable between the individual and a couple other factors that you have to consider. Now, physiological effects so this is going to go and lead to a drop in estrogen, which is in turn going to lead to a pretty significant loss of body fat. It's going to go and lead to disruption of homeostasis. The individual is going to be undergoing hot flashes. There's going to be vaginal dryness. Facial hair may start to go and develop because testosterone may start to elevate. And there's also going to be an increased risk of cervical disease as well. Like cervical cancer is going to be a higher risk without these hormones. And then, of course, estrogen and testosterone both help to aid bone density. So individuals who do not have estrogen might start to get osteoporosis because they no longer have any mechanism to maintain their bone density. Now, premenstrual syndrome, also known as PMS, symptoms 7 to 10 days before the period. They include depression, irritability, fatigue, headaches. There are many potential causes for it. One of the ones that is theorized is progesterone deficiency. This is kind of hard to test, particularly in animal models, because humans are one of only 3 or 4 species on the planet that actually have menses. The majority of animals have different ways of managing their reproductive system. They don't bother shedding their uterine wall. We're kind of unique along with rats and most other primates for that. Now, there are different treatments for very, very bad cases of PMS. Medication, antidepressants, so things that can help manage serotonin, changes in diet, aerobic exercise, just trying to increase the strength of the body to go and try to make this muscular process a little less intensive. Serotonin also helps with muscular spasms and muscular contractions, so that's going to be helping as well. Basically, with this, we are in general managing for symptoms rather than trying to say cure it. So, treatments, medicate, or did that page? Now, menstrual cramps. This is when you end up with really high levels of prostaglandin inside of the smooth. So, when subject to high levels of prostaglandin, the smooth muscles of the uterus are going to contract. Muscular spasms are going to cause pain, and they're going to reduce the blood supply to the uterine muscles, which is in turn going to go and cause cramping because of oxygen deficiency. There's also a disorder known as endometriosis that is pretty dangerous. Basically, the uterus lining tissue starts to form on the outside of the uterine cavity. It could be forming on the oviducts, the ovaries, the outside surface of the uterus, or even the bladder. The endometrial tissue grows and breaks down in response to the hormonal cycles that we are already aware of. And basically, large volumes of tissue melting in your body cavity are going to cause very severe pain and occasionally some very severe secondary medical issues. Occasionally, this is treated either through hormonal treatments. Sometimes it's also treated in very severe uh, uh, incidents with a hysterectomy, which is surgical removal of the uterus. Now, breast cancer. This is going to where so this can begin in a couple different regions. Most common are going to be the cells lining the milk ducts inside of the milk glands. So this is why monthly breast exams are very important for individuals. You should self-inspect. You should also go and get checked at your doctor pretty regularly. Pretty much from puberty onwards. It's similar to the testicular test that men are supposed to do. Now, breast cancer, risk factors are going to be increasing as you are exposed to estrogen. So, if you were very young when you had your first menstruation, that's going to increase your risk factors, in part because your body it's very intense on the body. If you never have children, that can increase the incidence of breast cancer. If you are older at first pregnancy, that can increase the risk as well. If you are obese, that can increase the risk. It is theorized that breastfeeding may reduce the risk and also have some immunologically positive effects on the baby. But, that's kind of, though it is important to go and have a holistic approach to the mother and the baby's health when you're developing treatment plans and care plans. Yeah. So in general, the more tissue is being changed, the more subject that tissue is to cancer, because cancer is a disorder of cellular replication. The longer you are having to be subject to these periods of change, namely if you're younger at menstruation, or if your menopause takes longer to go and come about, you also have higher risk factors. It's all just about how often are the cells having to change form, and for how long are they having to maintain that. So here, this is a physical procedure for how to do a breast exam. This is something that's worth reviewing if you have breasts and you need to examine them. So this is how the process actually goes about. Now, sexual arousal and sexual intercourse. There are going to be two primary physiological changes that are going to go and be associated with this. The first is going to be vasocongestion, which is where certain tissues become saturated with blood. In the male, this is going to be the erectile tissue of the penis. In the female, it's going to be the erectile tissue of the clitoris. You also are going to see a myotonia, which is certain muscles are going to go and show sustained or rhythmic contractions. So, yeah. 4 stages of the sexual response cycle: excitement, plateau, orgasm, and then resolution. So, you can probably figure out where in the cycle each of these are. They do not have much significance other than orgasm biologically is significant because that's when the genetic material is moving. The rest of these are going to be, muscular spasms that are going to be, or hormonal swings that are going to go and be helping to regulate the actual reproductive behavior. Now, birth control can prevent pregnancy. There's no 100% successful birth control, but there are some extremely effective ones. Like the pill is going to be reasonably effective, as are implants. The IUDs, the insertion devices, those are going to be the most effective. Condoms are going to be more effective than any of those, but only if used properly. Do not get a condom that's too small. Do not get a condom that's too large. Do not double layer your condoms. Lubrication is your best friend to survive this whole event. The point is, it is important to educate yourself about these things. And however, this is not the point of this class to go over birth control. So we're going to move on from there. Abstinence. I don't know why we have a little message about abstinence in here. This course was designed by someone out of South Carolina, though, so they might just be letting their own personals get in the way. Now, sterilization, cutting and sealing the gamete transport tubes. This is going to permanently prevent fertilization. However, it does not offer protection against STDs because STDs are usually infections of the vaginal tissue. Now, sterilization like this can occasionally undo itself because the gamete transport tubes, might try to reconnect. However, in general, it's important to note that sterilization is very rarely reversible in males and females. There's kind of a rumor that goes around, like even in this presentation, it talks about how it may be reversible, a vasectomy in a male when the vas deferens is cut, preventing sperm from leaving the body. That is true sometimes. In a lot of cases, the pressure inside of the vas deferens starts to build up. Normally, excess fluids would just be released into the urinary bladder, be released in the urine. However, if the vas deferens is separated, the internal pressure of the testicles starts to reach a certain critical mass, which ultimately kills the reproductive cells. So, this might permanently sterilize the testicles, which is irreversible. In addition, when the vas deferens is cut, it often will form scarification inside of the tube. So even if rejoined, it might not be able to reconnect fully. Tubule ligation in females is going to follow the same procedure. The oviduct, except they're removing the oviducts instead of the vas deferens. This is going to prevent the eggs and sperm from meeting. Typically, this is irreversible. It's also a lot more dangerous to try to reverse because it's intra-abdominal surgery inside of the body cavity, as opposed to extra-abdominal, like a vasectomy is in a male. So in general, if you're making this decision, treat it like a permanent one. Do not expect to be able to get it reversed. Hormonal contraception currently available only to females, although I have seen some data on male implants recently that are pretty successful, so that's kind of cool. Does not provide any protection against STDs. And in fact, because sometimes the hormones can go and have an immunological effect, some people do not react well to them. It might actually make you a bit immunosuppressed and increase your rate of transition. There are two basic approaches for the hormonal treatments. One is to go and give a combination of estrogen and progesterone, and the other is to give you only progesterone. Those are going to be working differently in different individuals. It is very important to, when selecting a birth control, be working pretty closely with your doctor to monitor it. Now, combination estrogen and progesterone contraception. We have synthetic forms of estrogen and progesterone. This is going to suppress the release of follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, which in turn is going to prevent maturation and ovulation. This is going to be the pill, the skin patch, a vaginal ring, things like that. Then the progesterone-only contraception is also going to use synthetic progesterone, and it's going to prevent ovulation. And it's going to work in part by thickening the cervical mucus. So the sperm is going to have a harder time swimming up the cervix. The endometrium is also going to be a lot thinner, so implantation is going to be more difficult and less likely. The 3-month injection, the mini pill, and the rod shape implants, all of those are going to be progesterone only. So here you can see this is how birth control is going to be affecting the hormonal cycles.
To visualize the interplay of hormones during a woman's monthly cycle. Right. At the beginning of the cycle, when menstruation occurs.
Oh, I'm sorry. This video isn't about birth control. This is just following the hormonal cycles. Although I thought we did this video earlier in the presentation. Just give me a second, folks. I know today's a little bit chaotic. Well, we have the charts. No, I guess there wasn't a video. Okay. Oh. Huh. Okay. Sorry, folks. Guess I got a little bit confused there. Disorganized. Let's go and watch this video then.
The interplay of hormones during a woman's monthly cycle. At the beginning of the cycle, when menstruation occurs, estrogen is produced by developing follicles in the ovary. When the estrogen level is high enough, the hypothalamus signals the pituitary to release a spike of FSH and LH. High LH levels cause ovulation. Until this point, the progesterone level has been low. After ovulation, progesterone and estrogen are produced by the corpus luteum. Progesterone stimulates the rebuilding of the uterine lining in preparation for pregnancy. Progesterone also feeds back to the hypothalamus, returning FSH and LH to their original low levels and controlling estrogen levels. In the absence of pregnancy, the corpus luteum degenerates. Falling progesterone levels trigger menstruation. What happens to the hormone cycle when a woman takes the combination birth control pill?
Oh, wonderful. They do the birth control. I guess they just gave us a review on the hormones first. Whoops. Sorry about that.
Ovulation. Low. After ovulation, progesterone and estrogen the corpus luteum. Progesterone stimulates the rebuilding of the uterine lining and also feeds back to the hypothalamus, returning FSH and LH to their original low levels and controlling estrogen levels. In the absence of pregnancy, the corpus luteum degenerates. Falling progesterone levels trigger menstruation. What happens to the hormone cycle when a woman takes the combination birth control pill? The combination birth control pill contains synthetic estrogen and progesterone. These hormones are ingested in continuous doses for 21 days. Then, for 7 days, no hormones are taken. Without progesterone to keep the uterine lining intact, menstruation occurs. The presence of progesterone throughout the rest of the cycle combats the effects of estrogen. No LH and FSH spike occurs, and therefore ovulation does not happen. The mini pill contains synthetic progesterone. The hormone is ingested at a continuous dose for 21 days. Then for 7 days, no hormone is taken. During this time, menstruation occurs. The presence of progesterone throughout the cycle denies estrogen the ability to cause a spike in LH and FSH levels. Therefore, ovulation does not occur. The Depo-Provera shot is given every 3 months. It contains synthetic progesterone released at a continuous dose for 90 days. The continuous presence of progesterone throughout the cycle denies estrogen the ability to cause a spike in LH and FSH levels. Therefore, ovulation does not occur. Because progesterone levels do not drop during the cycle, menstruation may be irregular or not occur at all in many cases. The Norplant rods are implanted under the skin for several years. The implant contains synthetic progesterone released at a continuous dose for the life of the implant. The continuous presence of progesterone throughout the cycle denies estrogen the ability to cause a spike in LH and FSH levels. Therefore, ovulation does not occur. Because progesterone levels do not drop during the cycle, menstruation may be irregular or not occur at all in many cases.
Alrighty. So with that, let's talk about intrauterine devices. So intrauterine devices, this is the Y. These are small little either copper or plastic Ys that are inserted into the head of the cervix. This is going to prevent fertilization and implantation because it's going to be releasing hormones, and two, it is mechanically blocking the cervix. This does not give you any protection against STDs, and there can be some health or fertility issues like long-term associated with extended use of this one. So it's something that you should discuss with your doctor before you decide to do. Now, barrier methods prevent fertilization and also reduce the prevalence of STDs. These are going to be your diaphragms, the cervical caps, contraceptive sponges, and of course the male and female condom. These are going to vary in degree of protection against STD. Condoms have very good protection. Something like a cervical cap does not give you any STD protection at all. And here are just some visual examples of each of these different contraceptive devices. You know, mostly this is the Y, the intrauterine device I was talking about. This is going to be inserted into the uterus through the cervix, and it's going to be releasing hormones. Now, spermaticide is also another mechanism that that can kill sperm. These will prevent fertilization. There are foams, creams, jellies, or tablets that you can smear down there. But they're only going to work for about 1 hour once activated. These are going to have some of the lowest efficacy because, well, if anything is still alive after 1 hour and it gets to the wrong spot, it might as well have never been there at all. This may actually increase the risk of STDs for certain STDs, but it may decrease some other ones because it is mildly antibacterial. However, it also is going to go and be affecting the microbiome of your vaginal canal, which in turn might make you more subject to STDs. So it's really going, if it's a viral STD like AIDS or herpes, it's not going to do anything to prevent that. Now, another one, this is the traditional method by which like married couples would regulate how many children they had. Like I'm talking like 1600s, 1400s, Middle Ages, all that. And this is just fertility awareness. Basically, you try to only have intercourse during stages where fertility is unlikely. So if you are going to go, so during a certain time of your cycle you're not going to be able to go and have children, so you just make sure you do all your intercourse during that portion of the cycle. This has a lot of problems with it. It has a very low success rate, because sperm can remain alive inside of the fallopian tubes and the vaginal canal for multiple days. And depending on your nutrition, your health, and your stress levels, your cycle might have variable lengths as well. This is one of those things that honestly, it's kind of like, quite frankly, it's like the pull-out method. What do you call someone who uses the pull-out method? A father, you know? This is what do you call someone who uses fertility awareness? Parents, you know? Now, people tend to go on monitors using calendar, body temperature. Some people also could take a measurement of their cervical mucus. Now, emergency contraception. This is contraception that's intended to be taken after intercourse. And there are kind of two types. So we call these the morning after pills. The first is going to go in be an estrogen and progesterone treatment, and the second is going to be a progesterone treatment. Uh, Either of these are going to go and cause, like, they're going to go and induce a lot of, they're going to go and cause a little bit of chaos down there. You might have an uncomfortable period, but in general, this should help you to go and prevent pregnancy if you've had unprotected intercourse. It is important to note that this is not a guarantee, this is a hope. So, don't rely on this as your mechanism of birth control. Uh, for one thing, it'll make you incredibly sick if you're taking this regularly. Now, at this point, here are our learning goals. Should be able to state the function of the gonads, describe the function of each organ of the male reproductive system, the development of sperm, the formation of semen, and hormonal control of male reproduction. You should be able to describe the function of each organ of the female reproductive system, the ovarian and uterine cycles and the interplay between them, and the hormonal control of the female reproductive system. Should be able to explain the cause and symptoms of health problems of the female reproductive system. You should be able to list the stages involved in the human sexual response and the physiological changes that accompany them. You should be able to name each method of birth control present in the chapter, explain how it works and why it prevents pregnancy and its relative effectiveness. In general, when I am making the final, I'm going to be pulling primarily from our PowerPoints. So that's going to be our main focus. All righty, folks. So let me just stop the share. All righty, folks. So that is our first presentation from the reproductive system. We're approaching finals. This is one of the last classes in the course. But I just want to wish you all good luck. Know you're going to do great. Reach out to me if you have any problems. I check my email pretty regularly. And y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.